There's a famous experiment that isn't actually real, but you already know the metaphor. If you throw a frog into boiling water, it will jump out immediately. It feels the danger instantly. The heat is a shock to the system. It reacts. But if you place that same frog in a pot of cold water and you turn the heat on low, the frog doesn't jump. It adjusts. It acclimates. The water goes from cool to lukewarm. The frog thinks, "This is fine." By the time the water hits a boil, the frog is cooked. Not because it was lazy, but because the danger arrived too slowly to trigger an alarm. That frog is you. And the pot you're sitting in right now, it's called the modern economy. The water is heating up. But because it's heating up slowly, over decades, over years, you don't feel it. You feel comfortable. And here's the uncomfortable truth we have to sit with today. Comfort is not just the absence of pain. It is the single greatest obstacle to wealth. If you are looking for a video that tells you to buy a certain stock or to follow a 10-step plan to retire early, this isn't that. This is about the psychology of silence, about how the very things designed to make your life easier are actually the chains keeping you poor. Let's look at the thermostat. Think about the last time you felt genuinely uncomfortable. Not inconvenienced, uncomfortable. When was the last time you were bored? When was the last time you were hungry? When was the last time you had to wait for something? If you live in a developed nation, the answer is probably not recently. We live in the era of frictionless living. Friction is the enemy of comfort. And for the last 15 years, the entire global economy has been engineered to remove friction. Don't want to cook? A person shows up at your door in 20 minutes with a hot meal. Don't want to wait for a movie? It streams instantly. Don't want to work a job you hate? There's a government stimulus check, or a low-interest loan, or a buy now, pay later button that lets you buy the dopamine hit today and worry about the math next month. This isn't a moral judgment. It's a trap. The financial system has figured out that the easiest way to control a population is not through oppression. Oppression causes boiling water. People jump. The easiest way to control a population is through sedation. You keep them comfortable enough that they never look up. Let's look at the numbers. In the early 2000s, the labor force participation rate for prime-age workers was consistently above 83%. Today, it hovers significantly lower. Millions of people simply stopped participating. They didn't stop wanting money. They stopped wanting the discomfort of the grind. And the market responded. We created the gig economy. We created side hustles. We rebranded poverty as minimalism. We told ourselves that being broke but having time to scroll TikTok was a form of freedom. But here's the hard math. If you aren't uncomfortable, you aren't growing. And if you aren't growing, you aren't accumulating. You are just maintaining. And in an inflationary economy, maintaining is the same as losing. Let's talk about the invisible mechanism that punishes comfort. There's a concept in economics called time preference. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. How much do you value the present versus the future? A high time preference means you want everything now. You take the $50 today instead of $100 next week. You buy the new iPhone on credit because the discomfort of waiting is too high. A low time preference means you delay gratification. You suffer the discomfort of not having the thing so that you can have more things later. Here's the problem. For the last 40 years, the system has been rigged to reward high time preference. Every time the economy hiccups, every time there is a recession, a pandemic, or even a dip in the stock market, the central bank steps in. They lower interest rates to zero. They print trillions of dollars. They flood the system with liquidity. What does liquidity do? It makes the water warm. It makes it easy to borrow money. It makes it cheap to buy a house. It makes your 401k look like it's growing, even if you're not adding to it. But here's the part nobody tells you. When they print money, they aren't just increasing the supply. They are stealing your purchasing power. If the money supply doubles, the value of the cash in your savings account gets cut in half. It's a silent tax. And who pays that tax? People who are comfortable. People who keep their money in a bank account, earning 0.5% interest, thinking they're being safe. If you are sitting in comfort, working your 9 to 5, getting your 3% raise, paying your mortgage, and parking your leftover cash in a savings account, you are not building wealth. You are treading water, and the tide is going out. From 2020 to 2024, the average price of a home in the United States increased by over 40%. The S&P 500 increased by roughly 70%. If you owned assets, if you were uncomfortable enough to take the risk of buying when everyone was scared, you made a decade's worth of wealth in 4 years. If you were comfortable, if you held cash because you were waiting for the dip or being responsible, you lost ground. You can't afford the same house you could afford 4 years ago. Your labor didn't keep up. Your comfort cost you. There's a myth that circulates in personal finance. It says, get a stable job, work hard, save 10% of your income, invest in index funds, retire at 65. This is the comfort narrative. It's seductive because it requires no discomfort. It requires no sacrifice. You just show up, you do your time, you die. But let's look under the hood of stability. In 1958, the average lifespan of a company in the S&P 500 was 61 years. Today, it's less than 18 years. The idea that you can work for the same corporation for 40 years and collect a gold watch is a historical artifact. It's a ghost. Stability in the modern economy is a moving target. The companies we think are permanent, the AT&Ts, the GEs, the Kodaks, they vanish or get gutted. And when they vanish, the employees who built their lives around stability find themselves at 55 with a mortgage, a car payment, and a skill set that the market no longer values. Comfort told them to stay. Discomfort would have told them to jump. We saw this in 2023. The tech sector, the supposed promised land of stability, laid off over 260,000 people. These weren't bad workers. They were people who got comfortable. They bought the big house based on a stock price that went up because interest rates were zero. They built a lifestyle on a foundation of liquidity. When the water started to heat up, when the Fed raised rates, the party ended, and the comfortable were left holding the bag. If comfort is the enemy, then what is the solution? It's not just work harder. It's not start a drop-shipping business. Those are just new forms of comfort dressed up in hustle culture clothing. The solution is voluntary discomfort. It's the ability to look at a situation, a job, a city, a lifestyle, an investment, and ask yourself, am I staying here because it's safe or because it's the right move? Wealth is not built in the moments of safety. It's built in the moments of mispriced risk. It's built when everyone else is fearful. Think about the people who became wealthy in the last decade. They didn't get wealthy by buying houses in 2021 when interest rates were low and everyone was bidding. They got wealthy by buying houses in 2010 when the market was on fire, when everyone was telling them they were insane, when they had to live with the discomfort of uncertainty for years before the market turned. They got wealthy by buying Bitcoin in 2013 when it was a joke, by starting a business during the pandemic when supply chains were broken and chaos reigned. The common thread is not intelligence. It's tolerance for discomfort. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, used to practice something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. He would voluntarily live in poverty for a few days a month. He would wear rough clothes. He would eat bland food. Why? Not because he was a masochist, but because he wanted to know that if he lost everything, he would survive. He was inoculating himself against fear. Most people never build wealth because they are terrified of losing what they have. They cling to their comfort so tightly that they strangle their own potential. Let's talk about the middle class. The middle class is not an income bracket. It is a mindset. And the mindset is built on comfort. The middle class mindset says, I will trade my time for money. I will buy a house with a mortgage. I will buy a car with a loan. I will send my kids to college with a student loan. I will work until I'm 65, and then I will collect a pension or a 401k. This is a linear path. It's a conveyor belt. It requires no creativity. It requires no risk. It requires no discomfort. But here's the irony. This path is the riskiest path of all, because you are betting your entire future on the assumption that the system will remain exactly the same for the next 40 years. You are betting that inflation won't spike. You are betting that your industry won't be automated. You are betting that your health will hold out. You are comfortable today, but that comfort is a loan, and the interest is compounding against you. The wealthy don't think in terms of comfort. They think in terms of optionality. Optionality is the ability to have choices. When you own assets, businesses, real estate, intellectual property, you have options. If the economy tanks, you can buy more. If the economy booms, you sell. You aren't tied to a paycheck. Comfort kills optionality. Because to be comfortable, you trade your optionality for a salary. You trade your freedom for a predictable, recurring deposit. And that deposit looks safe until the day it stops. So let's bring this back to you, right now, today. Look at your life. Where is the friction? Where is the discomfort? If the answer is nowhere, then you are likely sitting in the pot. The water is warming. It feels nice. You have Netflix. You have DoorDash. You have a 3% raise coming next year. It's easy to justify staying. But here is the unresolved question, the one you have to sit with after this video ends. If you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you survive? Not how long would your severance last, not how long until you find another job doing the same thing. If the rug was pulled, if the comfort was revoked instantly, how many weeks or months could you go without changing your lifestyle? If the number is less than 12 months, you are not wealthy. You are not stable. You are a renter of your own life. And here's the thing about renting. The landlord, in this case the economy, can evict you at any time. We started with the frog. But unlike the frog, you have the ability to look at the thermometer. The question is not whether the water will boil. The question is whether you will sit there long enough to feel it, or whether you are willing to jump into the cold, uncomfortable, terrifying water outside the pot, where the risk is high, but the air is clear. Comfort is the enemy of wealth, because wealth demands a price, and the price is your peace of mind. It demands you look foolish for a while. It demands you say no to things you want now so you can have things you need later. The system doesn't want you to do that. The system wants you comfortable. It wants you consuming. It wants you dependent. But you have a choice. You can stay in the warmth. You can wait for the next stimulus check, the next low-interest loan, the next soft landing that the news anchors promise is just around the corner. Or you can accept the discomfort. You can build assets while everyone else is sleeping. You can learn skills that make you immune to layoffs. You can move to a cheaper city. You can sell the car with the payment. You can stop trying to look wealthy and start trying to be wealthy. The water is heating up. It has been heating up your entire life. You've just been too comfortable to notice. When the heat finally becomes unbearable, will you have the strength to jump? Or will you have forgotten how?